Okay, in the prior 3 weeks, we talked about the brain, we talked about energy in the economy, and our impacts on the environment. We're assembling a big picture of the human predicament. Let's talk about what this implies, what to do about it, and some suggestions on what to take on board in your own college careers and your future lives.
We are all alive in the Anthropocene. You now have had a brief exposure to some of the main drivers of human ecosystem. To seek and approximate the similar emotional states of our ancestors, we invent and create things using mostly non-renewable energy and resource. This creates growth and waste. But there's a bit more to it, something emergent that has happened since the agricultural revolution, a dynamic that continues today. If you think about a bird, a starling, an individual bird follows 3 simple rules. Do what your neighbors do, don't get too close, fly towards the center. An emergent property is something that you could never predict from the analysis of the components that make up a larger system. In this case, knowing what rules the individual starlings follow would not prepare you to predict this beautiful murmuration in the sky. In a similar way, human individuals also follow a few simple rules. We cooperate with others, either in small businesses or corporations or at national levels, to gain access to energy and monetary surplus. We follow cultural rules of what behaviors are socially acceptable, and we spend our surplus on fun, interesting, and socially approved things. The emergent effect of 7.7 billion people following these simple rules is a globally connected network that functions like a real organism. This superorganism is fed by a global transportation system with gasoline and diesel acting as the hemoglobin. An aerial view of a city shows roads and highways very much like veins and arteries in a body. Viewed this way, the global superorganism is always awake and always hungry as it expands delivery nodes for goods, services, and people around a larger and larger global network, turning it into something that resembles a giant metaphorical amoeba. The amoeba doesn't have a brain, but it follows simple rules. Whatever allows it to grow, this leads to a perpetual hunger for more energy. This explains why we've had 40 years of warnings on climate change, and yet both energy use and emissions are now at all-time highs. What this means is that our institutions, including universities and politicians, can only see and discuss the blue and the green lines shown above, because discussing the possibility of the orange or red lines doesn't fit with the experience of the 20th century, nor the emergent feelings linked to energy behavior of large human groups. But what we're not often taught in modern culture is that consistent economic growth has not been the norm for most of human history. All of modern economic theory was invented and described during the period contained in the red box above. The early economists' attempts to turn economic science into physics were assisted and subsidized, without being aware of it until maybe very recently, by the continued access to the productivity coming from the one-time carbon pulse. Perhaps our institutions would be wise to develop some scenario planning on what if that blue line doesn't continue skyward. A couple other important points. Humans are not bad or evil any more than wolves or wildebeests are. For 290,000 years we lived sustainably in egalitarian bands. Now we face a carbon trap, where the same thing that supports our economies is inexorably destroying the planetary ecosystems. We face this with a culture politically constrained for growth. This doesn't mean things are hopeless, it just means sooner or later we're going to have to change the way we live. So here's a rapid-fire list of possible things to think about as a culture, as an economy, and as an individual college student on what to do about the future. If you've been paying attention to the news, we are already hitting social limits to growth. What might happen beyond growth? At some point, the superorganism that is the global economy will run out of cans to kick to maintain our current high levels of physical consumption, which would result in an economic simplification. The default will likely be this will then be followed by a society self-organizing again towards more growth. Can knowing what we know about behavior, energy, and the environment inform what sort of governance and objectives we might aspire to as a culture. We've come a long way from hunter-gatherer bands on the savannah. Can we collectively be something more than an energy-dissipating amoeba? How might we merge growth with governance? When we start at low levels, we get massive increases in well-being from additional energy use. But when we start with a lot of energy, we only get small increases from more. For instance, if we don't have energy to access basic water, getting some would greatly improve our life. But if we can take 20-minute hot showers, being able to take a 25-minute hot shower doesn't give us much. Could we arrive at the junction of the yellow and blue circles on the right graph? We need to regain civil discourse, trust in science, trust in media, and trust in ourselves. The challenges from this human superorganism are nonpartisan. We need left and right talking to people about our collective future. Can we culturally extend, as opposed to narrow, the circle of our care? Will we ever include the health of the real stock market in the valuations of the financial one? As of this recording, there are 2,700 emojis we can send to each other on our phones. Not one of these icons represents the concept of our shared planetary and social future. We need icons and conversations to make the future less abstract, more real, and viewed as a collective challenge. Here's a T with a forward arrow traveling through time, which is my upcoming tattoo design. Our current cultural stories are that after we wreck Earth, we'll escape to the stars somehow. Both Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have recently said as much. We even had a red Tesla in orbit. What about the 7.5 billion of us that have no plans or means to go to Mars? What sort of technology might we start to create for an Earth trek? Speaking of technology, I suggest to my students the 10 best inventions of all time by humans. Here are the top 3. Number 3 is the bicycle, the most energy-efficient transportation device known to man. Number 2 is the story, countless hours of excitement and high attention just from the colorful imagination in the mind of another human. And the number 1 invention of all time, the golden retriever, or any dog really. Yes, other things like flush toilets or antibiotics might make the list, but the central point is the things we really need and enjoy don't require high technology or resource inputs. We would be wise to remember this coming century. And in addition to being wise, can we make room again in our institutions for kindness and empathy? How might this simple model be changed under a 21st century science synthesis economic system? We'd still seek similar emotional states of our ancestors, but we would use fewer non-renewable resources and energy to create useful technology while generating less waste. The question is, can we become more than an energy-hungry amoeba, and if so, how do we get there? In your lifetime, the world will likely become a bigger place, less accessible than today due to more costly transportation globally. What would a buy local society look like? And how would changing our mindsets to start something like that look like in real life? Okay, the first 3 videos, the prior 3 weeks, explain some fundamentals about our reality. Together, this has provided a rough understanding of our situation, but from understanding, there also has to be being and ultimately doing. So here's a brief list of suggestions on being and doing. Viewing this video series, you might now look at the world a bit differently with respect to your own brain and behavior, energy, our economy, and the natural world. You might have new lenses with which to view things in your studies, your career, and your life. Shown here as a model for these lenses is my student Miranda. First of all, appreciate the huge advantage you have in life because of being born in this time, in this country, and because you understand these things. You're one of the very few so far who do. Think for yourself. Use logic, reason, and avoid group consensus thinking. Make your own choices. Don't step out of society. Live a normal life. Advance in a job you like in today's world, but know it will likely change at some point. Just like brushing your teeth, there's some basic things you can do to meet the future halfway. Eat less meat, be conscious of your conspicuous consumption and other choices, and have conversations with people on the issues that matter. Beyond that, be ready to engage when the world needs your knowledge, because even the synthesis in this 1-hour video series will allow you to squint and see the shape of the future clearer than we're shown on TV. Our culture is chock full of complicated, expensive, and ultimately unnecessary stuff and expenses, and it's unsustainable. Just like nations get declining marginal returns to more stuff, so do individuals. Simplify first and beat the rush. Get to know your mind and how it actually works rather than how it feels like it works. When you buy a cheeseburger, drink Mountain Dew, show off in front of people, buy nice clothes, think about these things while you do them. You don't have to change them, but think about them. Being more aware of yourself gives you insight into your primal, less conscious desires, as well as a small ability to trump them, which in turn gives you social flexibility, empathy for others, and ability to solve problems. Humans are notoriously bad at predicting the future. Our brains like to go to the poles of, there's no problem, technology will solve it, or it's too late, we're doomed, pass the pizza and let's play Fortnite. Those reactions are understandable because they're comfortable. They mean you don't have to do anything to make change. But things in the middle, where our likely future resides, by the way, cause dissonance because they are uncertain. So try to embrace uncertainty and carry that dissonance with you. We're surrounded by supernormal stimuli. Turn the tables. Make the normal super. Reset the ratchet of joy for life, taking breaks from short attention span artificial simulation. Be in touch with the way your brain evolved to be used. One of my former students just went on a 225-mile solo hiking trip on Lake Superior hiking trails, a personal challenge. As honor students, each of you has access to 24/7 stimulation, comfort, and reward. Maybe learn to have discipline on what sort of novelty and hedonic rewards you choose. Despite your GPA, your resumes, and your knowledge, when you leave here, your healthy mind is going to be your most valuable asset. A disciplined mind is a rare and amazing resource now and at all times. We didn't evolve to handle the sheer amount of information and anxiety-creating impulse we face circa 2020 in the USA. So remember to be kind to yourself, find balance, find a place and situations to recharge yourself. Here's me hiking the Appalachian Trail with my little brother. A couple times a year I go hiking without my phone, or I bring my phone, but there's no Wi-Fi, and I reconnect to nature. It takes a few days for me to stop reaching into my pocket to check emails, aka getting dopamine squirts. But when I'm done with these hikes, I feel immensely better, mentally and physically more fit, and better able to cope with the craziness of our world. From time to time, get away from people, media, the news of the world. Reset your mind and thoughts alone. I recommend doing this in nature. For those who aren't nature buffs, just being disconnected from other humans is key. Instead of constantly comparing yourself to others, try to personally recognize how amazingly rich our lives can be right now. It takes some practice, but we can personally redefine our outlook to one of abundance instead of scarcity, which is a good philosophy even if your future does result in considerable affluence and abundance. Choose your tribe wisely. We are currently on a runaway train with the superorganism shoveling more fuel into it every year. Might as well find the dining car with people you share life goals and meaning with. Most of you are seeking that anyways, so this is just a reminder. After basic needs are met, the best things in life are free. Please remember that. Consider personally engaging with the big issues and big problems. Stand at the intersection of a healthy economy and healthy environment. Start by just talking to friends and family about it, processing thoughts, discussing solutions, like in the Nexus group you're in right now. Consider immersing yourself in the very systems which are the problem and strategically affecting them from within. You can't save the world yourself, but you might be able to cause important change on a larger scale than you might think. We have to speak up and defend those beings who don't have a voice in our economic system. Lastly, not today or even this semester, but sometime soon, have a conversation with yourself about who you are living during these times. What do you stand for? Do you want to just have fun or do something with deep meaning or some combination? Knowledge of who you are gives you at least some power over your daily lives. While the path to profoundly wonderful human futures does seem difficult at the moment, it remains open. We have powers and abilities our ancestors couldn't dream of, and the freedom to use them. This century will consist of challenges and accelerating changes. Existing social structures, conventions, and rules are going to change as well. Any plans and goals which endure through these changes will require the kind of personal resilience which only flows from who you are, your own ethics and dedication to the things you've decided to treat as important or even as sacred. What our organizations and institutions do, then, will follow from who its people are, not the other way around. Put simply, this will be the century which tests the human potential for destruction against the human potential for greatness. You, young hominid freshmen at the University of Minnesota Honors Program, are the mind of life on Earth. To the extent the future can be consciously visualized and influenced, it will be done with a mind like yours, by striving to be self-aware, proactive, and good. Learn, think, talk, steer the conversation and life's events towards the better side of what humans are capable of. We're all alive at a fascinating, amazing, and perilous time. We're now at major inflection points on energy, the economy, and Earth's environment. The stuff in this very short video series was intense and a bit weird, and it's natural to feel some fear and anxiety about your future, our future. But it's my hope that, armed with a clearer picture of what the game board looks like, you won't view this synthesis as a bummer, but as an opportunity, a chance to be part of an adventure. Recall that we live on a heliocentric planet, and we figured that out. We evolved, and we figured that out. Globally, our economy is now functioning as an energy-hungry superorganism, and we're figuring that out. What does it imply for a possible cultural transition in the future? Can we inform the mitochondria of living differently culturally with each other and on this planet? Enjoy college. Enjoy your life. Live it fully. Treat it as an adventure. It should be abundantly clear that we are not alive in normal times. I invite you to play a role in the greater story because the next chapters are not yet written.
I think the most valuable thing I have gained from learning all the information in this course is a new pair of lenses from which to view the world and to go throughout my daily life. We often hear these doomsday perspectives or options for our future, or on the other end, these Star Trek Black Mirror worlds, which we're learning are not necessarily possible. But I think if we can find ourselves somewhere in the middle, we can recognize there are still immense possibilities for joy and fulfillment.
One of the main takeaways that I've gotten from this material is that in the future, we're going to have to live more simply. We're going to have to live in a more creative way that makes better use of our resources, that makes more with less. And I think one of the ways that I've tried to live that through my life is I actually went to Cuba, but I held myself to a total budget of $500. So that's $500 for all travel, including planes. I stayed in really cheap places. I ate the cheapest type of food. I didn't do anything lavish. And I think by doing that, even though I was, flying to a different country and using jet fuel, but despite that, I think I really learned how to live with less. And through that, not only did I actually save money, but I actually enjoyed the trip more because of that, because it was a challenge and it was rewarding because of that. And I think that gives me inspiration and hope that in the future we can do more with less and still be equally happy.